So let's see where we got up to. So if you remember, we were discussing the Rambam in Perek Ches Milchus Chovel Umazik, Halacha Daled with Hasog of the Ravid, and the question is, when a person destroys someone else's possessions in order to save his life, does he have to pay compensation for that? And the Rambam says, which we thought was pretty explicit in the Gemara in Bava Kama, that unless the object is destroyed, let's say, for example, when the Anos, who's representing the government, is right there on the spot and he knows exactly where to get the diamonds or whatever it is, and that's Ki'ilu Nisraf, that's one thing. But in a case where the Moser would hand over the money to the Anos, then he's going to have to pay for that. If, on the other hand, he just shows the Anos where to find the diamonds, but the Anos himself will actually dig up the diamonds, then he's potter. And the Ravid says that even in a case where he lifts up someone else's mammon and directly hands it over to the Anos, he's going to be potter. And he quotes the Gaon. And he says, Ein lecha davar ha'omed mipnei pikuach nefesh. He's allowed to hand over someone else's property to the Anos if his life is on the line. So why then should he be chayav to pay damages? Me'ayin yischayav lo zeh. What sheyamus b'shvil momer chavero? Should he die rather than hand over his friend's mammon? He needs that to save himself, because the Anos designated that bag of diamonds, and that's what he wants. So it comes out that the Ravid, quoting the Gaon, is of the opinion that if a person is matzil es atzmo b'pikuach nefesh, the moment shal chaver is potter, he doesn't have to pay. And that seems to be directly in conflict with the Gemara. So let's take a look again at the Gemara on Daf Ayin Dalid, Omid Aleph. And it says that Nirdaf sheshiber es hakelim shel Rodef potter shel Adam chayav shematzel atzmo b'momen chavero. He has to pay compensation for damaging the properties of his friend, even though it's pikuach nefesh. So the last thing that we discussed yesterday, which I want to review, is the following possibility. The case of the Ravid is the case where the Anos designates certain property that he wants to bring to the king's treasury, let's say. And that's called Yiched Lo Ha'aku Momon Shel Chaver. The Ravid holds that if a person hands over that momon that was designated by the Anos in order to save his own life, he's potter v'tashlumin because of Yiched Lo Momon. But if, on the other hand, there was no Yiched Lo Momon, and a person is a fugitive and he's running away from a Rodef who's trying to kill him, and now he destroys someone's property in the process of, as a fugitive, of running away, then even the Ravid would agree that he has to pay damages because it's not Yiched Lo. And in a sense, what the Ravid would be saying then by implication is that if, let's say, Shimon is running away from Reuven and he destroys the property of Levi, Levi has a right to say, why did you destroy my property? Maybe you could have saved yourself with somebody else's property. But in the Ravid scenario, the Rambam in Perek Ches Milchas Chobel Mazik, there the Anos designated that piece of property. That piece of property holds the life of the person who's giving over that property. And that's called Yiched Lo. Okay. So that's what we got up to yesterday. Now let's go back to the case of Rava, where the Nirdaf destroys the mammon of the Rodef. And Rava says, Yepatur, Shaloye mamono chaviv olav migufo. That was the language of Rava here on Daf Ayin Dal. So what do we get from this lo yehei mamono chaviv olav migufa? Right, the Nirdaf is allowed to save his life, even at the expense of killing the life of the Rodef. And how much more so is he able to and permitted to destroy the mammon of the person that he's allowed to kill, meaning of the Rodef. So in a sense, what Rav is saying is that there's a kind of kal v'chomer. If you're allowed to be matzel yourself b'nafsho shel harodef, then certainly b'mamono shel harodef. So let's take a look at the way the Rambam formulates this halach of Rava, again in Perek Ches Mihilchas Chovel Umazik. But we're going to look not at halacha Dalet in this parak, but rather at halacha Yud Gimel. Nirdaf sheshiber kelim shel rodef potter lo yehei mamono chaviv olav migufa. The Rambam gives a very short, concise explanation of this din of Ptur. And he almost copies the Gemara verbatim. He doesn't go into long discussions about, he could save himself by killing the Rodef, and certainly he could save himself by taking the mammon of the Rodef. None of that. The Rambam is just saying simply that Shaloye mammon chaviv olav migufa. It's almost like a separate din. If you're going to say that, look, in the process of Hatzolah, he's allowed to take the life of the Rodef, then how much more so in the process of Hatzolah, he's allowed to take the life of the Nirdaf. And take a look at the language of Tosas here on Daf Ayin Daled. He says, Mida nitan latzila b'nafsho, kolshke the nitan, and we'll add a word latzila b'mamona. So again, we're back to the concept of latzilo. For the sake of Hatzolah, he's allowed to kill the Rodef and take the Rodef's life. And for the sake of Hatzolah, he's allowed to take the possessions of the Rodef. But again, all of this is for the sake of Hatzolah. Midanita latzil tzilo benafsho, nita letzilo bimamono. It's all about Hatzolah. Tosfos puts the emphasis on Hatzolah. The Rambam leaves that out. The Rambam just says that he's a Kelev Shel Rodef, Potter. Lo yeheba mono chavolov migufa. In other words, if the Torah allowed you to take the life of the Rodef, the Torah is allowing you to take the Kelev of the Rodef. But the Rambam doesn't introduce the concept of Nitan Latzilo. That whole phrase that Tosfos makes the big deal about of Nitan Latzilo benafsho, and therefore Nitan Latzilo b'mamono, is completely omitted by the Rambam. The Rambam is in effect comparing mamon to nefesh, and he's adding a kal v'chomer. If the Torah allowed you to take a nefesh, then the Torah allowed you to take mamon. So the nafkamina now is going to be what happens if the nirdaf wants to take revenge against the Rodef, and he deliberately destroys the property of the Rodef, not for the sake of Hatzolah, but simply he wants to do as much destruction to the Rodef who's threatening his life as he possibly can. According to Tosfos, you're going to have to pay for that. You can't get away with that. You're not doing it for the sake of Hatzolah. We were applying the Hatzolah heter to Mammon as well. If Hatzolah works and allows you to take the nefesh of the Rodef, then certainly Hatzolah, for the sake of Hatzolah, will permit you to take the Mammon of the Rodef. But it's all for the sake of Hatzolah. That's the way Tosfos is formulating. For the sake of bash him because I want to destroy him, he's trying to destroy my life, that kind of revenge motivation would not come under Hatzolah. Your destruction of the Rodef's property is not going to in any way enhance your Hatzolah or your statistical probability of Hatzolah. But the Rambam leaves that out. No mention of Hatzolah. The Rambam is comparing nefesh to mammon. If the Torah was matir taking his nefesh, then the Torah was matir taking his mammon. It's like a built-in heter. Go burn his house down. This person is trying to murder you? Go ahead. You're allowed to take his life. Certainly you're allowed to take his mammon. So that's the Rambam in Hilchos Chovel Umasik Perek Ches Halacha Yud Gimel. But you know what? Let's go back a little bit and rewind the Rambam in Perek Ches Hilchos Chovel Umasik Halacha Yud Aleph, 2 halachas earlier. John, you have the Rambam, right? So we spoke before about the Rambam in Perek Ches Michovel Umazik, Halacha Yud Gimel. But before that, we spoke about Halacha Dalet. So we get Dalet, Yud Gimel, and now we're going back to Yud Aleph. Asur li abed mamono shel masur. Okay, we have somebody called a moser. Now, a moser, again, we don't know exactly how to define a moser, but let's say he's someone that's willing to give up a Jewish life to be killed by the melech, by the memshala. He's a moser. He deserves to be killed. But yet the Rambam says, also li'abed mamono shel moser. We can't destroy his mammon. Afal pisha mutar li'abed gufo. We're allowed to kill the moser, but we can't destroy his mammon. Shrei mamono roy liyarsha. there's no reason why the heirs of the Moser should be cut out and they should forfeit. You want to kill the Moser, kill him. Well, leave his moment alone. It's almost as if the Yorshim have a schus Yerusha in his mammon, and we can't be mafkia that schus Yerusha simply because of the fact that he's a scoundrel and he deserves to be killed. Now, what we want to do here is again go backwards in the Rambam to the case of a Rodef. We said that in the case of the Rodef, according to the Rambam, the Nirdaf is allowed to destroy the moment of the Rodef. But in the case of the Moser, we're not allowed to destroy that moment. And we're so concerned, says the Rambam, about the Yarshim, why don't we have that same concern in the case of a Rodef? If you destroy the Rodef's property, you're in effect stealing it from the Yarshim, who are guiltless. They're guiltless in the case of a Moser, they're guiltless in the case of a Rodef. Because the Rambam in Halacha Yud Paskins that mutal larog hamoser bechol makom afil bisman hazeh she'ein donim dinin nefashos. Okay, that again needs a lot of study here. The din of a moser, but mutal lahargo kodem sheyimsar. This is like a rodef. We know he's going to give over a Jew to the government, and who knows what's going to happen to that Jew. And before he does that act of Masira, we're allowed to kill him. He's a rodef. Ella, kisha amar reini moser ploni begufo o b'mamono, vafilu maman kal harei hiter atzmo lemisa. All right, there are many dimensions to this halacha that we have to, we'd have to spend who knows how much time investigating. Umasrim bo v'yomer lo al timsar. Im heiz panav v'yomar lo keleb serenu. Despite the hasra, he says, "I'm going to go and do this. I'm going to violate your warning." Then mitzvah lahargo, v'chol hakodim lahargo zacha. And yet, the Rambam says we cannot destroy his property. Right? Afilu, he says, also liabid mamono shel mosa. In the case of the Rodef, we're allowed to take his moment and destroy it. Let's ask the following question. Is it really true that the Moser is a Rodef? Again, we're allowed to kill the Moser. That the Rambam says explicitly. The Rambam even gives you a little prize. He rewards you. But I don't know if he's a Rodef. Logically, you'd say he's a Rodef, right? Because by giving over a Jew, the Jew might die, might be killed. So here's the question what we're asking. In the case of Rodef, the Rodef is Chayav Misa. And we even said that we're going to apply Kimlev the Rabmine if he incurs a Chiv Mammon and he destroys Kalim and so forth. But in the case of a Moser, we're not sure if he's Chayav Misa. We certainly have license to kill him. We're allowed to. We may even get brownie points for that. But is he a full-fledged Rodef with a Chiv Misa? Maybe not. For example, in the case of a Moser, would he come under Kimlei B'Drabmin and he'd be parted from any damages because he's a Rodef and he's Chayav Misa? The answer is no. We don't know that he's Chayav Misa. But rather we have a reshus to kill someone. It's a very fine but yet fundamental distinction, two different categories. You have one category where he's Chayav Misa, and you have another category where the Torah gives you reshus to take his life, but he's not Chayav Misa. So what are the nafkaminas here? Nafkamina number one is that if the Moser would destroy Caleb, he'd have to pay for that. There'd be no Kimle b'Rabamine because he's not Chayav Misa. And the second nafkamina is that we cannot destroy his money, his monetary possessions. Okay, Rabbi, at this point, just looking at my clock, we're really meant to start a brand new sugya, gigantic sugya. One of the most famous sugyas in Shas, which is called Kiddush Hashem. So I just want to read the first few lines of the Gemara so that we got a jump start for tomorrow. The Gemara says the following. Amar Rab Yochanan Mishum Rab Shimon ben Yotzadok. Can you find that? The lines get wider, and it's about, I would say, halfway down the wide lines, maybe about 20 lines down. First word in the line is Kochavim. Amar le Rab Yochanan Mishum Rab Shimon Yotzadok Nimnu v'gamru b'aliyas beit nitza b'lud kol aver shebetorah, etc., etc. So that's where in Mirz Hashem we want to start tomorrow. Now,